So what we're going to build today is a text-to-speech generator thing, and it converts text into a natural-sounding voice with AI voices. You should be able to choose between 2 or 3 different voices, download a high-quality MP3 audio file, and also basically understand how to use API of other softwares. Now our tech stack today is going to be like text-to-speech engine. So there are a lot of text-to-speech engines. So today we are going to use OpenAI's text-to-speech engines. Like there are the 2 other ones, very famous ones are 11 Labs, and there is a new system in the market called InWorld. So these are pretty cool text-to-speech engines. OpenAI is obviously like the cheapest right now, but and InWorld is the most emotional. So if you are looking into building more emotional voices, etc., you could use InWorld's API. But sort of if you're looking for the cheapest and like value for money, I feel like OpenAI has done a good job over here. So what we're going to do is our simple. So if you remember day 1, I had mentioned that. So if you go back to day 1. So basically we have covered React, right? And today we are going to bring in Node and Express, right? And also these APIs will also come, API and auth will also come. But today mostly you'll see Node and Express in your software. And today also the one thing which we are going to do is try to actually look at the code also, right? Because in the last 2 days, the sort of focus has been to actually make a product work. So today we would also want to look into the code and try to understand what actually is happening within the code itself. So today we are basically doing 2 new things, actually 3 new things. One is adding a backend system. Second is actually having an API of another software, like for example, OpenAI, the text-to-speech system. We're going to integrate with that. And the third thing, who's the third thing? Sorry, I think I forgot the third thing in my head. I always say 3 because I'm habitual to the whole McKinsey 3 points, but sometimes I forget the third point in my head. Cool. So that's what we're going to build. So core features today, like have a text input. Oh, so sorry. Yeah, the third thing which I wanted to say was we'll actually look at the code and see like how code is structured and what is happening within the code, so that you start understanding how to read the code files, etc. So text input, voice selection, audio generation, and a downloading system. So that's what we're going to focus on the core. But obviously, like we can have stretch features if time allows, and if you want to keep building. So just so basically, let's get started. So basically, I'm going to do a live demo now. Today is going to be basically I want to give you guys today you would need more time because we are going to have a bigger system to build, and so I will be going faster. Like I'm not going to go faster, but like yesterday, because I think like we covered a lot of concepts. You now are very fully versed with Railway and GitHub. I'm hoping everybody has posted their links online. So now that you have a full end-to-end system, like you know how like to use Cursor, how to use Railway, how to use GitHub. Today we are going to add backend, and we'll have a full stack app working. So I'm going to fire up Cursor. Same steps. Open project. Oh, where is my open project? Okay. So this one. So over here I type what I'm building. TTS generator. Audiobook generator. Audiobook. Maker. Open. Amazing. I have the agent. Oh, I have auto. I'll make it Cloud4 Sonnet. Amazing. I'm going to take my first prompt from here. So I'm saying basically I want to build a text-to-speech generator. Users input text and get back natural sounding audio using OpenAI's TTS API. Backend focused app using Node.js Express, OpenAI TTS API. Users can paste text, select from different AI voices and download high quality MP3 voices. Keep it simple but functional. So generally, just to give you a bit of context, generally I wouldn't put like what kind of technical stack I am going to use. So initially when you're building out, like you might like building a new software for yourself, you'll be like, because you would not know like which particular technical things you want to use. So in those cases, you just basically you don't need to give this, and you can just accept whatever Claude is going to suggest, and that's completely fine. And right now I add this so that basically it can help you sort of like, it can keep the scope simpler for basically doing the class. Otherwise, if you're basically building it yourself in your software, and if you don't know what you're going to build it with, you don't need to add the different things which you are going to use. So I press enter.
If you miss the line scope empty, is cursor intelligent enough to know, she's asking for scope empty and she's forgotten to do it.
If I miss, can you write scope at MD?
Yeah, I missed writing scope at empty.
No. I think I will not be able to figure that out.
Nice.
I think it will start generating the code for you, because the way cursor is generally set up to write code. So by default, what it would do is basically start writing code. It is not set up for writing documents typically. So if you want to write documents, you need to mention explicitly that write a document. So you have a text-to-speech generator. Let's open the scope. We have the same file over here. So it has gone ahead and used it understands OpenAI's APIs. So it has gone ahead and said, hey, there are multiple voices inside OpenAI. These are the voices. We're going to do audio generation. We're going to do file management, a user interface. The backend stack is Node.js, and the framework is Express. OpenAI JavaScript SDK built-in module for temporary file management. Frontend is going to be HTML5. Why HTML5? So over here, I would basically make it have React also. So actually, I'm going to change the. It should have mentioned. Okay, let me just change the prompt for frontend. Let's use React. Actually, I'll type it here only. I'll change the prompt for you guys. For frontend, let's use React. I'll add over here for frontend. Cool. So in scope, it has basically changed it to React CSS3. And you can see now, because we're building a backend, it has also added Axios, which I mentioned is a library used for API calls. So that's great. So I'm fine with this one. The second thing which you're going to ask it to do, MVP. Let's say MVP. Keep. So basically, we have a single MVP features. We're going to use only one voice in the MVP. That's fine. Instant file download. That's great. Dead simple interface. A page. Backend core. File structure. Specifications. Request. Response. Error response. Downloading point. User visits a page. Pastes text in the text area. Clicks generate button. Sees progress indicator. Downloads MP3. Plays AI audio. That sounds like a good MVP to start with. Okay. So I think that sounds good to me for now. Now we're going to ask you to design. So let's do this. So the three prompts are: first is the scope, the second is the MVP, the third is the design. Right? So let's do this. So the next step is going to be, we're going to use all the three documents to build the app.
Oh, just a way. I'm a security. So whenever I generate code, I also add one requirement. I say that every single piece must be in compliance with the latest best practices and OWASP, and so it can't input. And it does it. It does a great job there.
Yes. So I think like if you're building, I think like see with the cursor, I think like what they have is that they also have their own prompts in the background which are helping us build the code, like actually write this code. So I feel that things like security and sort of things like the don't repeat the code in different parts of the software, all these things are already included in the actual prompts of cursor itself. But if you want to explicitly add that, like it's fine also, because I feel then it will go ahead and check every single thing based upon a checklist. And there is another way. Basically, there is something called as like I'll show you on the fifth day, where you have things like so there is a thing called context 7. So these are like, this is maintained by a company called Upstash. So what this is it's like a repository of all the documentation out there on the internet of different libraries, right? So and all the best practices which are out there. So what it does is basically when you're writing, we'll integrate this into our cursor, and what would happen is that if whenever we are writing code, it will actually reference this before it actually goes and writes code. So I'm not introducing this concept just yet, but sort of it will introduce this concept on day 5 as to how to use MCP servers to actually make your coding life better. But it's a bit like, so this one will basically take care of like your thing, which is like, you just don't want to use best practices for security. You want to use best practices for every single thing, right? Like you want to use best practices for React, best practices for Node, best practices for Express. So what happens is when you integrate this one, it goes and checks the like different libraries, different best practices, and generates code based upon that. So yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
So we basically have the system built now. So we're going to just do install dependencies. So let's say open terminal. It's asking me to do a bunch of things. So why is the terminal not starting? Okay. So I'm going to npm install. First step. So npm install, what now is happening is, so now I want you to look at the code files over here also. I think there's a file called package.json here, which I think we've seen in different software. All 3 softwares you have built up till now. Each of you would have package.json everywhere. So package.json has the sort of like all the different softwares we're using. So you can see we're using Express, OpenAI, and Core. So it basically mentions all the different libraries that are being installed. All the libraries which are mentioned here are installed in this folder called node_modules, right? So you have all the which libraries you want, and they come in this folder node_modules. How they come? So when we say npm install, this command, what it ends up doing is checks the package.json, sees all these files, and downloads them from the internet and puts them in this folder. So that's what is happening when we're giving the npm install command. What is happening?
We do not have to change directory, or are you already?
I think my software written as such that it's in the same directory as the main directory. So you check basically how Claude has decided to structure code. So my code is right now inside the main audiobook maker only, where I wrote the documents. So my documents are here, and the code is also in the same folder. So npm the install worked. Now the second concept which I want to show to you. So package.json is one concept which you're going to see in most of the software. The second thing which you're going to see in most software is this file called .env.example. So this is an environment file. So for example, it's like, imagine these are like the passwords of your software, right? So for example, a software can be written by, so just like you have a password for your own login into, let's say, Gmail. This is these are like backend passwords. So for example, now we have like our backend system is going to talk to OpenAI, right? But OpenAI needs to know who is talking to OpenAI, right? So that it is your software talking to OpenAI. So the way that happens is that OpenAI will say, here is an API key, right? Like here's an API key, put it inside your software. And if it's in your software, I will know that it's you coming to my system, right? That's what is happening. So in code, what happens is that there are these files called .env files, which keep a track of my passwords for my software, which my software can basically use to go into other systems or do any other thing which it needs to do. So that's what the purpose of env file is. The second purpose of env files is that it also takes care of different configurations. So when you're building a software, some person might want to have, for example, in our software, it had decided that we are only going to support maximum text length of 4,000 characters, right? But Alexander, you might be building software and say like, oh no, I want to support 10,000 characters. And Ishita might be like, oh no, I want to support 2,000 characters. So the software is the same, but the configurations are different, right? Like we might have different configurations which we like. So that gets stored in the environment file. So it's almost like the different things which your particular software like needs, like passwords or configurations, which go inside this file. And from this file, the code is using, like the code, for example, I'll show you. So let's go into this file called server. So in server, you can see it basically calls this env file. You can see API key is equal to process.env.openAI API key. So this is how server is requesting the API key from this file in the back, right? So that's one file which you're going to see. So generally what would happen is Claude would generate this example file. It's like an example, but now we'll actually generate a file for ourselves. So that's what it's like, copy the example file and make a new file called .env. So it says, so as soon as I do that, I have an env file, which is going to be my own file for my software. This is an example file, and this is my own file. The reason why it is that, for example, Alexander, you are also an engineer working on this software, right, with me. Then you install this software on your computer, and you can run your own configurations in your computer. You don't need to copy I don't need to share my passwords with you. I don't need to share my configurations with you. I just share the example file, and then you can copy the example file on your computer into your own env file, and then it will run with that. That's the reason why you have an env example and you have an env file. Okay, let's do npm start and see if it is working. So we have the front end. So you see that we have a health check. So we have the front end running a localhost 3000. Let's go and check. Okay, so we have this AI voice generator, right? Now let's just type something here. Hello, how are you? Generate audio. So it says generation failed, right? Why? Because we haven't really integrated with OpenAI system. So now we're going to figure out how to integrate a system with OpenAI. So OpenAI API key. So create an OpenAI API key, right? So if you're integrating any AI software into your code, you will need to go. If you can use Claude, you can use OpenAI, you can use whatever. There are hundreds of softwares out there. You can use whatever, but the process remains the same. That we're going to generate an API key, and what we're going to do after that is put that API key in the env file, right? And once you put it in the env file, our system will be able to talk to OpenAI system. So if you don't have an account with OpenAI, you might want to, like the developer account, you might want to create it like once when you're doing your software building. So here we are here. So let's just create a new secret key. So my secret key, I'll name it. What am I going to name it? Audiobook. Gen. Create secret key. So I'll copy this and I'll paste this inside. I'll replace this sk your open API key here, command V, right? So I have the API key now. No, sorry, I pasted in the wrong file. I pasted in the example file. I need to paste it in my own file here. So command V. Okay. So I replace your open API key here to this. This kind of configuration port and node underscore env, don't need to worry about it right now because it's a server configuration. And these are just like different sort of like configurations, which we are not to worry about. So what we're going to do now is we're going to restart the server. So we're going to restart to restart any software which is running in terminal, you just do Control C and then you start, say npm start again. So let's check again. Hello, Major Tom. Sorry, whatever. Let's generate audio. So we have the audio now, and I can press download. Yeah. How do I run this? Oh yeah, here it is.
Hello, Major Tom.
Can you hear it?
Hello, Major Tom.
Amazing. So
Cool.
So on the software aspect, what are you saying, Alexander?
Thank you. First of all, this is awesome. Second of all, I noticed when you built it, there were two more portals. Like there was a health checker portal and there was something else. I would love to see what it created there as well, if you don't mind.
So health check is generally, so because you have a server running, so this is the server's health check. So you have two systems running right now. You have the website, right? But you also have the server, the backend. So generally backend typically tends to have a health point where if you want to check if the backend is running or not, you can use this health point to say check status healthy and everything is fine. Right? So everything is running and all is good. So generally this is the way. So all servers, like when Claude is going to code, is going to create a health endpoint, which is going to be a check because backend is almost invisible, right? Like how are you going to actually visualize backend? There is no way to visualize the backend because backend is just like code running in a system. You're not going to build a front end for a backend. So front end for the backend is your actual software. So that's why these systems are created to check the health. And in more complicated software, these health endpoints will have a lot of different things. Like this system is running perfect. This system is running perfect. This system is running perfect. So that's what like this health endpoint ends up doing. So now to look into the file, like I want us to look into this file also, like what the code over here has. So you have a server. So you have a server, you have .env, you have the temp, and you have the public. Okay. So if you look into this code, so how it is structured is in the public, you have this file called index.html, right? If we I'll just minimize the chat window for now because I actually want to look at the code. So I have a code file over here which is called the public in index.html. So this is if you look into this file, it has like colors and sort of like buttons and like everything which is to do with the visual design of our front end. So this index.html is the front end aspect of the code, and this server is the backend. So it's going to have like things like express and sort of like all the business logic and conversion, like the API endpoint which are converting text to audio, right? So all of these things are sitting inside the server. Now the way to understand code. So for example, from now on, if you're like curious, like hey, I also want to understand what I'm building. These are my softwares. I also want to know what has been built. So what you would tend to do is, can you help me understand? So I'm a beginner at coding at engineering. I have just joined the team. Can you create documentation.md for me to understand the whole code base? Also, please add metaphors so that I can understand from the real world what is happening. Right? So I'm going to basically do that. I'm also going to save this prompt in Notion. Where did Notion go? To check what code has been written to understand actually. So I'm going to just enter that and I'm going to create a documentation.md for you to actually understand the code as to what is happening. And then you can use that file to understand what the code has been written, like what code has been written in each file. Okay. So meanwhile, I'm also going to start adding, create a GitHub repository. So github.com. Okay, I'm going to give the command push to GitHub. So it will do the job. In the meanwhile, we're going to read the documentation. So documentation is here. So over here, what it has done is it basically has given us understand the whole software and given us what is happening. So it has said like the reception desk, you have a studio coordinator, professional voice actor, recording equipment. So it has given us metaphors to help us understand the code. So if you look at the system architecture, there's a customer, which is the browser, which fills the form and gets the audio. There's a studio, which is the Express app, where sort of like our text goes, and some voice actor, which is the OpenAI over here. It takes a text, converts it into audio, sends it back to the studio, and the studio gives it back to the customer, right? And in your storage, tomorrow we're going to cover databases, but today what has happened is locally it has saved a file. This file is saved over here in the temp folder. It has saved the file, which is our audio file. So documentation. So file structure explained. It's like the audiobook maker, the package.json, the server, and environment. So all of these things happening are basically mentioned in the documentation, core components of. So you can basically go ahead and read this and try to understand in the code as to exactly what is happening line by line and understand in your mind as to how the code is being structured, what is happening. So any software you're building, I think it's always good to keep a documentation file inside it. And as you're adding features also, at different intervals, you should keep updating your documentation file. Right? So basically you can keep reading as to what new documentation is there and sort of like what's happening. So I'm going to now run this. I'm going to push this to GitHub. Get in it. I'm going to quickly open up Railway. Where is our Railway? Oh, no. I didn't want to deploy this. Okay. I've redeployed Instagram generator. Audiobook gen. So here we have audiobook generator now being deployed. So the one thing which is going to be different now today. So yesterday we had just deployed and we could see it on the internet. But now because we have an env file. So when you have an env file, we never upload the env file from the software to the internet, right? So if you look at the git ignore, so git ignore is the stuff which is never uploaded to GitHub. So in this, you'll always have the env file. So if you search it, so in env files are never uploaded to GitHub, but the reason being that you don't want the passwords to be stored inside the folders of your GitHub account, right? So generally the env file is never uploaded to the internet. So this env file. So that's why in Railway, when we actually sort of like, how do you say, when we have the, so in Railway, we need to re-add the environment files. So that happens in variables. So there's a system called variables over here. So in variables, we're going to add all the different environment variables which are there, right? So it has gone and figured out all the different variables that are needed from our code. So our code, because our code is requesting for variables, it has gone and figured out all the different variables that it needs. So we're going to replace the open API key with the API key here. So let's just do that. So I'm going to use the same API key I put in my computer. Do this. That's great. Port remains the same. Like over here, note, I can just mention production. You can keep it development also, it doesn't matter for now. And we can add all and deploy. The deploy button was, oh, crashed. Why is it crashed? Oh no, initializing. So variables, like you understand the concept of variables, any issues? In Railway, you're going to add the variables. That's why I wanted to deploy on Railway and show the variables area. And I'll go to the notion over here. important note, make sure your environment variables are set up in Railway. Cool. So I will just run this. So yeah, it's working now. So let's go to settings, the same process, settings, in, and if I click on this, no, generating, sorry. Yeah. So we have, so basically now if I write hello Tom, so if I write generate audio, I should have a download, and then I can download, right? So this works. So everything is working now. So now it's time for you. So my part is done. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing, and now you guys are going to build your own audiobook generators.